Hey guys, how's it going? Hi. I'm going to describe to you what happens to you after you die. Michael, I discovered that time is part of the environment just around before the turn of the century in the 90s, and I finished writing the thesis or the work describing that in 2012. Sent out press releases and everything, of course the media, as we found out this year, they don't like to tell stories that don't meet some previous power monger's point of view. So, in Canada, they're horribly evil. They've literally prevented you from knowing my work. It's crazy. Anyway, so I discovered that time is part of the environment, that it's something we sense and manipulate. Like, what does that mean, right? So what it means is that time is something we sense and manipulate. It's the source of our conscious minds. So I'm going to show you. As creatures of evolution, it's our great benefit over the creatures that came before us, that evolved earlier. Our extra abilities to sense and manipulate time give us an advantage over these other creatures. So let me explain that very briefly to you. Evolution works very simply. It's not very difficult to understand. It's exactly like this. If a creature can better sense or better manipulate the environment around them or inside them, they're superior to or they can do more than a creature that can't do that. Like a creature that has night vision can do more than a creature that doesn't, right? It can either run away from a predator or attack others. It can do a lot more if it has night vision versus some creature who doesn't. Same thing with some creature who has like longer, stronger claws. They can dig deeper for grubs and worms than something with a smaller and weaker claws. The first one's better senses for the environment. The second is a better manipulator of the environment, and that's what drives evolution. So for us, it's sensing time. It's our great advantage, and manipulating time. So what does it mean? Like, how can I describe the time environment to you? I completely understand it, but so can I give you a visual reference for what the time environment looks like? Yes and no. You have to combine it. Really, if I give you these two concepts, I think you're gonna get it, or the few concepts. Like the idea behind the thesis is that any sort of unit or discrete sort of singular unit of time in time is constantly moving. So there's no such thing as really a particle. Like, there's no particles in there. It's basically a field that's constantly moving. That's a node in time. It's the basis or essence of time. So when you get like a planet size or whatever, you get lots of nodes in time, and they all come together and merge together. As this video, this animation I use, this sculpture from the past for shows you these nodes can sort of interact and be together with them. It's a really rough and crude and not accurate. Like, for me, the nodes are spherical in nature. This is more based on, I think, a 4 or 6 base geometry. So it's a little different. But that gives you sort of a basic structure of time, like a flow constantly flowing, right? So from this, you can sort of get the idea how if you have a planet and you have all these nodes sort of collapsing into the central center of the planet to an infinitesimal space, you can see how that will sort of drive gravity. And that's kind of how mass and gravity work. Anyways, that's the time environment. Now, and even that's not properly visualized. But let me give you another way of understanding time that I think you might understand using both your visual and your auditory senses. Time, it's not something that you really see, it's something you feel, you sense, right? It's a lot like sound. Echoes are like a function of time, right? Sound, that's we have it as sort of degrading waves. That's how we describe it. But that's sort of an accurate reflection of the way time works. Another way of looking at it, and the way to actually look at it, to see it in a way, is what happens when people do these psychedelic substances. Something occurs that's called tracing or tracking. So like normally I would just see this, oh yeah, I'm just looking at my finger sort of smoothly, moving across this field here. But with the on the psychedelic experience, so you see, like you move it, but then you would get all these after images of the fingers, say, and the after images would be faded, right? More faded here, more solid here, and that's kind of like, and if you go back and you look at like all those nodes flowing, like that tracking, it's like the surface of the nodes moving away. See, so like that's kind of like time is. I'm gonna get more deeper into it, what to actually more easily describe it to you. Like I know what it is, I sense it, I feel it, I get it, and I think some of you will get it right away, and others will need a bit more. Anyways, so when your senses are working, what's happening? Your senses are coming in, and they have to be coordinated, right? Or you're just going to be like a blob, like what's going on? Just getting hit with different things. So just the ability to coordinate your senses is kind of a function of time in and of itself. So what we're doing with our senses is that we're kind of impressing sort of like daily sensory experiences onto time. And so those pieces of time are just constantly flowing and staying with you. Some people's memory is better, sense of time is better. They have better adhesion to time. Our brains can adhere to time in the same way that, like, I'm holding this glasses. Our brains can like clump onto time, and so it's always carrying a piece of time with us. And you release some of that when you go to sleep. You're dreaming. I describe getting to that another day. But that's what your brain does. Our hands grasp this physical world that we see and feel and experience this way. Our minds grasp the time world, the time part in the environment that we don't see, kind of like fish, right? You're a fish, you swim through water, goes through you, gives you oxygen, food, particles are in it, but the fish doesn't know what the water's made of, it doesn't quite understand why the air is there and it ends, it just swims through the water and just, lives in it. That's us in time. So that's what happens. Anyways, so that's why we're not gods, right? We're not super beings. We're just sort of a preliminary stage in being able to understand and manipulate this part of the environment more fully. So what happens when you die? Death is like an erosion effect, right? You die, like your life's over. Your bodily functions stop. Pieces of your body erode out. If they're not in a coffin or whatever, right? If they're out sort of in the world, what happens is, the wind will erode some of your skin, maybe some water. It's raining today, the water will erode some of it. Little bugs will take pieces, and eventually your body will crumble, decompose, or erode into the earth, and you're gone, right? Same thing with your mind. The earth is a big node in our system, right? It's kind of what gives us life, but our body life, right? There's lots of aspects of our body, but the sun really is more like the source of our minds. The sun is the central node in our system, this massive, huge flow of nodes right there, and it really is sort of like the master switch of all life here. It's like when you get older, these old people getting up early, usually with the sun or just before the sun rises at still twilight. So when the sun rises, or just before it's civil twilight, what happens is you wake up. You don't have a choice. The sun's like kickstarting your brain. It's like, hey, we're back again. It's like, oh, I have to get up. Like, it's just set up that way. Your bond with the central node sun is stronger as you get older. So you're just like, you don't really have too much of a choice about getting up early with the sun. It's just like, done, you're up. That's life. And that just shows another example of how tightly bound we are to the sun. Anyways, so when you die, the part, like, your brain is dead, right? It's no longer adhering to everything. Like, you don't have that core functionality. So everything, just like the rest of your body, just sort of dissipates and erodes. It erodes into the time environment. So some of you fall back into the central node of the earth and flow back out, and you just, it's just sort of effluvia. You just get ripped up, and there you go. You're done. You're finished, just the way your body's finished. But some of you also goes directly to the sun. Like, you get, there's these two huge nodes that have huge influence. The earth does too, the moon does too. But so, primarily this is right next to us, but the sun is the primary. So it's really more like the source of our minds, more than the earth is. Although I don't want to badmouth the earth or anything. It's very important to us, and without it, we'd be dead. Anyways, so what happens when you die, pretty much, is that your mind, you can say, it sort of fragments and splits apart, and it folds back into the time environments.